Welcome, one and all. You are listening to It's Covered, the insurance podcast, because if you think insurance is boring, then you are not doing it correctly. I am one of your hosts, Paul, and I am in the room, and this is a first. Y'all might not know, but this is a first for the podcast. I am in the room with Mel. How are you doing?
Hello. Yes, I am in the room right here, right next to you. So,
not really right next. You're actually behind a wall.
Well, yeah, but they didn't need to know that. Thanks for ruining it.
No, this is like, just letting people in on the mystique of the show. How the magic works.
I like being behind the curtain.
We actually tried it. Basically across the desk from one another. But there was just way too much bleed over between the two microphones. And that makes editing hard on me. And I don't like things being hard on me. And so, I stuck you behind, around the corner behind a wall. Now, if somebody walks in, this is going to look ridiculous.
Yeah, if somebody walks in the door, well, it'll look ridiculous for me because they won't see you. They'll just see me with my back to the door.
I'll just pretend like I'm not actually here.
Yeah, you won't respond to anything I say, Paul.
Yeah.
Paul.
Oh goodness. Well, so this is this should be a lot of fun. We actually spent a lot of time on a normal episode, trying to pick up on cues from one another, on when to interject something. I mean, just in the last episode, and I don't think this would have happened if we were in person, but I thought you made a very astute observation about people blaming weather patterns on their bad driving, for their bad driving. And you were actually just quoting Milli Vanilli.
Yeah, that was you totally missed that pop culture reference.
I totally went with it, and I published the episode, and after I published the episode, you're like, yeah, I was quoting Milli Vanilli. And I'm like, oh, shoot. Well. Oh, goodness. Well, today we are going to talk about kind of interpreting what people say when it comes to claims. Because, I mean, just over the years of dealing with claims and dealing with people and dealing with agents who are trying to deal with claims, we picked up on some patterns that customers will say when they really mean something different.
It's an art.
It is an art form. So, and a lot of times agents who don't have that type of experience will go, oh yeah, then it's that person's fault, or whatever the case may be. And this certainly is an exhaustive list, but I thought it'd be fun to kind of go through some of these and try to pick apart really what people are saying. So the first one, and Mel, you suggested this one is, the other car came out of nowhere.
Oh yes. The old teleporting car.
And we both just watched Avengers.
Yeah. So
in
that's
which
fresh
case,
on the brain, so I apologize ahead of time.
Right. Well, but that actually did happen in Avengers. That doesn't give anything away, but there's some teleporting cars, because it's, superheroes, but that doesn't actually happen in real life. So like, what's the scenario that somebody might bring this up?
Okay. Well, the scenario, of course, is, they would either call up to the claims office or even call up to the agent and proceed to tell their side of the story of what happened. And of course, since they're such good drivers, they always look out for the other car, and they've never been in an accident. This accident must be from a car that appeared out of nowhere. So they proceed to say that I was changing lanes, or I pulled out into a roadway, and this car came out of nowhere. And there's where it starts.
Right. And I think, I think they think that that's going to kind of evoke some sort of sympathy in the adjuster. It's like, oh yeah, well, they came out of nowhere. That must have meant that they, pulled up from the ditch and positioned themselves, right in that moment, or they were speeding or something.
Yeah. And that proves they were traveling at excess speeds of 160 miles an hour.
Right. Yes. Occasionally these cars travel faster than light, which is why you can't see them, because light is actually catching up to it.
That's right.
What does this actually mean?
Well, it means that they didn't see the car. Either it was in their blind spot, or they were in a hurry, their mind's on something else, and they pulled out in front of it,
Right.
and they just didn't see it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, cars obviously they don't appear out of nowhere, but it is our job as drivers to know where other cars are on the road.
Yeah.
You know, just because somebody's in your blind spot does not mean that you're not responsible to know that car is in your blind spot. And that's why we really need to be paying attention when we drive. And I had this one car one time and I wasn't really used to it. And just because I'm the height that I am, my rear view mirror was like right at eye level, and it blocked my view a little bit when I was looking to the right. And I had to get used to that, but I totally did what these people are saying. I was making a left turn, and I totally did not see a car approaching because it was being blocked by my rearview mirror. Now I did not run into that car, and promptly when I slammed on my brakes, I realized that car was a police officer who kind of just, as I slammed on the brakes and I like lifted up my hands like, I'm sorry. She just kind of looked at me and kind of did that slow shake of the head. Like, you're an idiot, you know. But thankfully she moved on. But you know, that's something that I had to realize about my car, and I needed, because of my height, I had an extra blind spot in that car, and I had to work around it. But that's my responsibility to do that.
Right. And by not working around that blind spot, of course, the areas you can see, there's nobody there. So
Right.
In your scenario, you slammed on the brakes. But if you never saw the car and it hit you pretty hard, you're going to have to tell your adjuster what happened, and you don't know what happened. So you try to, piece things together based on what you know. And what you know is you pulled out and there was no car in sight.
Right. Yeah, that police officer teleported in, you know.
That's
like,
right.
Like Nightcrawler.
That's right.
From the
He
X-Men.
must have been chasing someone.
Right. This is like an intergalactic incident that I happened upon. It's
right.
not my fault.
That's right. I'm a very careful driver,
Very.
and I've never been in an accident. You can see my record.
Right.
I always take care and look out for the other guy. So I don't know how that guy's driving. I mean,
Yeah, must have been speeding or teleporting.
that's right. I mean, did you see his stereo? And I mean, he had to be listening to loud music, and I don't know, I think I saw a beer can or two. Yeah,
It's
it
clearly
comes out
the
like
fault
that.
of texting.
Yes.
That person was texting. Oh my goodness, that's the other thing that, and I did not even put this in my notes, but the one we heard in Claims All the Time, and a lot, and in this, and we actually heard this when it was the other person's fault or it was our customer's fault, but you know, everybody was like that. I think he was texting. I think she was texting. You know, there's like no knowledge of that at all, but we want to like, you know, like just put that little icing on the cake. It's clearly that other person's fault because they're texting.
Yeah, that statement comes right after they never saw the other vehicle. But
yeah, and that does
somehow
too. Yeah.
They saw the
They were
texting.
probably speeding, probably texting. I mean, yeah, I didn't see them, but they were clearly texting. I could see it when I didn't see them. Oh goodness. So one that I came across a few times that I thought was I thought was pretty entertaining, and a lot of this is one that a lot of agents buy into because they're not understanding really what's going on. Is when people say, and this is a quote they say is, well, yeah, I had that claim, but they said it wasn't my fault. And whenever somebody says that, pronouns are a funny thing. And you need to know what pronouns mean. Whenever pronouns appear just randomly in a conversation, they're always pointing to someone. And I think a lot of agents will just assume that they means the adjuster.
Correct.
And that's not always the case. A lot of times I will ask, okay, wait, who's they? Who told you that you weren't at fault? Oh, well, I went to court and the ticket was dismissed.
Right. And, they exactly right. They do say that. And it's funny. Usually the they is someone who is in their chain of command, the most important person. So yes, somebody who is the judge or a police officer is always well above the adjuster.
Right. Yeah. And that is a natural misconception that most people have, is that, well, the police officers, they're writing tickets at the scene. The police officer decides who's at fault. And that's not the case. The police officer is issuing a citation, which in most cases is considered a criminal proceeding. Not meaning that you're going to prison, but meaning that they're following the rules of a criminal proceeding. And when you go to court in a criminal proceeding, which includes, traffic citations, the burden of proof is exceedingly high. You've heard the phrase beyond a reasonable doubt. It's very, very high. And so tickets can be dismissed because the witness didn't show up. They just can't meet quite that level of proof and that sort of thing. But the liability decision is a civil matter, and civil matters go on preponderance of the evidence. And that is decided by agreement of adjusters. Or if there's no agreement, then it enters into kind of legal proceedings like arbitration. But it's a completely different system and might have a completely different outcome, and they have completely different burdens of proof. And so just because some judge dismisses a ticket does not mean that you're not at fault. It could mean a number of other things, but it does not mean that you're not at fault. And so a lot of people will try to get that wiped off their record, or they'll come in and it's like, why are you paying this other person? The judge says I was not at fault. No, the judge dismissed your ticket. That's all that happened there, but we're still dealing with the civil part of the process.
And being in the agency, we really don't do our customers justice by hearing their side and not explaining to them how the process works, or at least preparing them for how the process works. Just kind of relating to them going, oh yeah, that's terrible. The other guy must have been, the seed of Darth Vader, the bad other driver. And everything you said is correct.
They came out of nowhere.
Yeah. They came out of nowhere and they hit you. Oh yeah, this is clearly not your fault. So when that happens, you need to understand that they're going to get the other person's side of it. They're going to do a recording and they're going to look for, keys or, things that will support your story. So damage to the vehicle, where that damage is, any, video, any, supporting bystanders, things like that. And they're going to look at all of that. So, if you're in the agency and you're going to call and check on your insured's claim, please know that the adjuster you're talking to is on your side, but has a different criteria for looking at the situation than you do, just backing up your customer.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And when I was an adjuster, whenever somebody said, well, the cop said, I have this natural reaction. Like, look, adjusters will dig into, accident reports very thoroughly. We love police reports. They have so much great information on them.
Even though police officers cannot spell or write. Just from experience. Sorry.
Oh, and, that's very often true, but, they do have some great info and some, on the scene, investigation, which is very, very helpful. But those reports are not the be all end all. And we're going to dig a lot deeper than the police officer is. And so, if you, if your customer is trying to rely on that dismissal of a ticket or that police report as the last word on the matter, just kindly explain to them. It's like, well, no, that's a different investigation for a different purpose. And so the civil, investigation is going to go on for a little bit longer.
Very true. Very true. And, saying the other person got a ticket or broke the law, you are not in the right if you see this person breaking the law and you say, oh, he should do this, and you keep going and then you end up hitting them. Mm-hmm. That's part of the problem. You need to avoid the other person.
Yeah. And that should be noted. Just because somebody's breaking the law does not mean they're necessarily at fault at the accident. And people, people talk about this all the time. It's like, well, what if, this person gets into an accident, but they're driving drunk? Is that a denial because they're drunk? No. And in fact, being drunk does not even necessarily mean that you're at fault. Now, look, you're going to go to jail, but that's on that side. And we're going to take into account that they were drunk, but you can't sit there and it's like, hey, yeah, look, that guy's clearly drunk. Let me rear end him. And in fact, we're going to talk about kind of a situation like that, in an upcoming episode. If I can find the video, cause I thought it was pretty interesting. That you're not allowed to do that just because you see somebody breaking the law, and that accident can totally be your fault. So without further ado, we don't really have a particular on this one in mind. It's just a classic. Whenever you hear the phrase, what happened was, you're about to get a story.
Yes.
And that story they're attempting to create such an enthralling tale that you don't notice all the stuff they did wrong. But whenever a story starts off with what happened was, 9 times out of 10, that person's at fault.
Yes, I would agree. Not to say that's the end all judgment, but just be very wary and take it with a grain of salt until you actually have all the facts.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No. I've never denied a claim or decided liability because of that phrase. But
internally, yes, the percentage is pretty high that you're right in the end.
Oh, exactly. And that's great. So, anyways, we're going to do more of these. These are, and if you've run across any of these phrases that, that people say, a lot when they're trying to communicate something that just quite isn't the way it is, then let us know. It's covered. podcast@gmail.com is our email address. Itscovered.net is our website. Please do check that out. We have a lot of resources on that website. We do hope that you check it out. Come join our Facebook group. But I mean, if you're going to do one thing, please share this with somebody. We come here week after week. We love doing this. This is a blast for us, and we want more people involved. And so, this is something we do because we like it, And we love giving you free material that you can use, that is very practical, that's sometimes inspiring, kind of get the juices flowing on Monday morning. And in return, what we'd really like you to do is to give it to a couple more people. And so with that, I think that'll do it for us this week. We appreciate you listening.
Yeah. Thanks for listening in, and have a great week.